want to walk you through the critical path method of finding or planning an activity. So I have borrowed from the textbook an activity that has these 8 different items in it, and I want to show you how to set up a network diagram and then show you how to evaluate it. So usually I start off with a basic idea that I've got this 9 cells, and this is all of the information that's going to go into it. I'm going to put an identifier number. Well, we don't have an identifier number here. What we have is an activity letter. So I'm going to place that activity letter here. Notice I made it an absolute reference, and I did that because I'm going to do some shifting or moving of this box or node to different places. Okay, one of the other things that I need is an early start date. Well, the early start date, I don't want to put that in yet, except for node A, it's going to be at time 0, so we could put that in. But the early finish date I can put in. The early finish date is going to be equal to the start date plus the duration of the activity, which I'm going to place down in that cell. Okay. In fact, why don't I go ahead and I place the activity duration in this cell. So I'm going to use a fairly unique way. I don't want to have to get I don't want copying errors to happen. So I'm going to use equals VLOOKUP. And what I want it to look up is this identifier that we just put in at the top of the box. And then I want to put in the table, and I'm going to put it in as an absolute reference. Okay, so I'm going to push F4. That's what puts in my absolute reference to this table. I want this VLOOKUP function to look up the letter A in this table and then go get the number out of the 3rd column. And I want the matching to be exact. So if it's not an A, I don't want it to find the next best thing. It has to be an A. That's why I use that argument false. So here's what I got. In this cell, this VLOOKUP function says, pushing F2 to show you the ropes, it's going to go to cell F9, which is where the A lives, and see what I want to look up. It's going to find what's in that cell and look it up in this table. It's going to find it immediately in this table. And then it's going to look into the 3rd column, and put the number 2 in as my activity duration. So things that I could still do, I could get the late start time. The late start time is equal to the late finish time minus the duration. So things that I can't put in yet. Oh, wait a minute, there's one more thing I can put in. That's the slack time. The slack time is going to be equal to the late start time minus the early start time. I have everything that I can possibly put in right now in. What I need to do right now is I need to start constructing my network. So here's what I find. Activity B follows A. A is its predecessor, so I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to put it right there, and this I'm pushing F2. Well, I don't want it on A anymore, I want it on B, so I've just moved it. When it's B, it's going to go over and look and say, oh, okay, with B, 3 units, so 3 days is the duration, so everything's looking okay. D, C also follows A. I might want to move this a little bit so that I can get C in as well. So I'm going to put C here. Again, I want a C here, so I'm going to, why don't I just type a C there? Right? Well, the answer is I may want to change the names on these activities. If I don't make a reference, I've got to change the name over in the table and at the node. If I make them connected, I only have to change the activity names in the table, and the update will occur automatically over in the nodes. Okay? All right, well, let's put the next node in. Node D follows both B and C. Okay, so node D follows both B and C. So F2, so I can see what I need to move. I need to move that to D. And by the way, I'm using a mouse. The way you could, let me do E. E follows B and C as well. Let me check that. Let me check my table. Something seems fishy there. Excel has this bad habit of auto inserting things. So this actually should just be a B and not a C. Okay, so node, I want to shift my nodes a little bit. D does follow both B and C. E, though, only follows B. Okay, so let me copy this. I'm using Control C to copy, Control V to paste, F2 so that I can move this box down onto the E and get my information updated. F follows D, so let me get F in here. Control C to copy, Control V to paste, F2, move this box down to F. Alright, looks like G follows C. Alright, well G follows C, so somehow I've got to get G and C connected, which is why I'm putting that box down there, that node down there. And finally, H is followed by E, F, and G. So H is followed by E, F, and G. And now I want to connect my nodes with some edges, and I can do that by going to the Insert tab and choosing Shapes and Edges. So just a straight line. I'm going to use that straight line to connect all of my nodes and edges. Let's see, D is connected to B and C. D is connected to B and C. E is connected just to B. E is connected just to B. F is connected just to D. F is connected just to D. G is connected just to C. H is connected to E. F and H. Sorry, and G. E, F, and G. Okay. All right, with all of these patterns, these paths, a path is a way to get through the tree. So there is a path that goes from A to B, E to H, A to B, D, F to H, A, B, D, F, H, A, C, G, and H. So there are at least 4 paths in this tree. I need to work my way from left to right through each path, and I need to connect the early start dates to the early finish dates. So we always start at 0. So early start, early finish is what I'm working on right now. Alright, there's only one edge leading into B, so the early start here is equal to the early finish in A. Let me go down to this node. There's only one edge leading in here, so the early start is the same as the early finish of the node just preceding it. Alright, I get over to node D, and there are 2 edges coming in. I can only start D after the maximum early finish time of the 2 edges that feed in. So I have to wait till period 5 before I can start at node D. Node E has just 1 edge feeding into it. So I go back to the predecessor, I pick up the early finish time. Okay. Node F has 1 edge coming into it. So I go back on that edge to the predecessor and grab the early finish time. Node G has 1 edge feeding into it. I go back to its predecessor, get the early finish time. There are 3 edges coming into H. So again, I have to use that maximum function, and I have to get the early finish time of each of the nodes that fit or fill into that early start time. Alright, so here's what I know so far. I can start at node A at time 0. I'll be done 2 days later. I can start nodes B and C after 2 days have lapsed. I will get B done in 5 days, I'll get B done in 3 more days on day 5, C done in 2 more days on day 4, and I can just finish that path. The path is going to take me 14 days to get this project completed. What I need to do now is I need to go back and construct this late finish time. Now I'm going to be working from right to left instead of left to right. So the late finish time is the same as the early finish time at node H. But when I work to the left, there's one edge feeding into node E. So the late finish time there is the same as the late start time in its predecessor. In F, the late finish time, there's only one edge coming in, is the late start time in its predecessor. At node G, the late finish time is equal to the late start time in its predecessor. And I just keep working my way backwards, filling in the late finish times as I go until I get here. Now look, I've got two edges feeding into node C. So to get the late finish time here, I don't use the maximum now, I actually use the minimum function of its predecessors, of C's predecessors as we move from left to right. Same up here at B, I've got two edges coming in. So that is equal to the late finish time is the minimum of the two nodes that are its predecessors. And again at node A, I've got two edges feeding in as we move from right to left. So I take the minimum of the late start time in those two nodes. All right, well, what do I have now? What I have is the path that's going to be moved through where I have no slack time. In other words, I have to be on time. I can identify that by looking at the slack time in each of these nodes. Everything that has a 0 in it is on the critical path. So all of those nodes, which I'll make that path red. The red path is the critical path. I have to be on time starting at A, B, D, F, and H. Well, where I have slack time, that means that I could be a week or a day late starting node C and I'd still be on time. I could be a day late at node E and still get done on time. I could be 3 days late starting at node G and still be done on time. Okay, that's how we construct one of these critical paths. I could actually go, this critical path method, excuse me. I could actually construct a critical path. And let me show you how I do it. I use a if clause. If the critical path here equals 0, then I want to put the letter A in, else I want to leave it blank. And then I just go through and I repeat that. For each node. So if the critical path is at B, 0, critical path here, now that's going to show up blank. Critical path at D is also 0, it's going to show up empty. Critical path at E is a 1, sorry, I think I should have said D was going to show up. E is 1, so it's going to be empty. The critical path at F is 0, it's going to show up. The critical path at G is 3, so that cell is going to be empty. And at H, it has no choice, it's going to be 0, because it is on the critical path. So I could identify my critical path this way. In fact, why don't I put in, whoops, don't want that marked white, I want it marked red. There is my critical path, and that's how I might structure this. Hopefully we can answer any additional questions you have while we're in class, but hopefully this shows you how to get through this critical path method to identify how to construct nodes and to fill in each node with the information we need, and also to find the critical path. Thank you.